Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding, the podcast for all who want to learn about legal funding and its significance in the personal injury, tracking law, workers' compensation, medical malpractice, dog bites, and many other types of law practice domains. I'm your host, Laura, founder and CEO of More Injury Funding, the legal funding counselors with passion for law, medicine, legal funding, and heart for all suffering individuals. More Injury Funding is a sponsor, member, associate, board member, or business partner of this podcast, Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, Academy of Track Accident Attorneys, Sandy Springs Bar Association, Georgia Association for Women Lawyers, Georgia Association for Paralegals, Atlanta Legal Aid Society, State Bar of Georgia, St. Andrew Rowing Club, Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Georgia Council of Chiropractic. In today's episode, I have a special guest, attorney Jamal Bethune with Litner Deganian, based in Atlanta, Georgia. In today's episode, we'll discuss the impact of negligence and liability in personal injury cases. At the end of our episode, I prepared a fun pop-up question for our guests, so stay tuned. Welcome to Time for More Injury Funding Podcast, Jamal.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. So since we will be discussing the negligence and liability in this episode today, can you, Jamal, please tell us what does negligent in personal injury law mean?
So negligence basically means you did something wrong. And you did something wrong not purposefully. So the most common one that I handle is going to be car wrecks. So with personal injury cases, you do have four elements. Some people cut it down to three, but technically it's four. Which is duty, breach, causation, and harm. And the negligence part of it is the duty and breach. So to give you an example, when you're driving a car, you have a duty to look out for people and not hit them. If you and then if you breach that duty by not looking out for someone and hitting them, you have negligence.
Mhm. And what is required to establish negligence in personal injury cases? What elements must be typically proven to make a case?
So some people just take the duty and the breach and add it in just and call it negligence, but that itself is negligence. So you have a duty. So first you have to have some sort of duty. So when you have a dog, you have to, make sure that the dog is safe, it's on a leash. If you have an establishment, you have to make sure you have a duty that is safe, that people can walk there, especially if you have like a store somewhere where people are expected to be looking up at shelves and stuff and not actually focused on the floor. You have a duty to make sure there aren't things on the floor where they can slip on. And when you're driving a vehicle, you have to make sure that you are driving in a safe and prudent manner. And if you breach that duty by not having your dog on a leash and and it bites somebody, or if you have an establishment and a wet uh you have a wet thing on the floor and you don't have a sign or some type of person, some type of thing to give folks notice while they're transgressing on your property, or if you're driving a vehicle and you hit somebody because you weren't paying attention or you're going too fast or you turned left in front of them, following too closely, whatever that may be, you have negligence there.
Mhm. And how does negligence play a role in determining liability in personal injury cases?
Well, it's critical. Uh, Technically, liability in personal injury cases includes negligence and causation. A lot of people don't consider it that way. A lot of people just call negligence, they use negligence and liability interchangeably, but that's not really correct. Because, say, for example, if you're in default or if an answer is stricken, uh, then liability is essentially established, which includes causation. But to establish liability, you need negligence. Negligence is absolutely critical. You do not have a case if there wasn't a duty that was breached.
Mhm.
So which is good because if you have a case, that means you got hurt because there is an element of harm there. So we don't want to be hurt. But to have a case, even if you got hurt for whatever reason, somebody had to have breached some sort of duty to you, establishing negligence. Um, so if you're driving on the road and for whatever reason, uh, let's say an act of God happened, uh, a lightning strike comes down and you know knocks out a building and something hits you and you get hurt. Well, nobody did anything wrong there. So even though you were harmed, even though we know what the cause of the harm was, there's no negligence. That's an extreme example, but that is what's necessary. First and foremost, that has to be there.
So what would happen during these nature caused accidents, like, I don't know, thunderstorm or a flood? Where does that negligence, I mean, where negligence stands in those cases?
So, I mean, we would need a certain type of example because everything, like so many things with lawyers, it depends. But when there's an act of God, there's typically not a personal injury case. Or at the very least, there's going to be a defense that you're going to have to be able to get around. Um, Trying to think of a good example. The truth of the matter is sometimes we have to, take ourselves away from the lawyerly personal injury mindset of it and just, think with a little bit of common sense. If it's flooding outside, you probably should not go for a drive. It's very dangerous. So you should probably stay home in that situation. And then you won't put yourself in a position to hydroplane or whatever and get yourself hurt where there really isn't any negligence to blame for somebody else for it. Um, and so those are the things that you need to consider.
You explained it so well. Thank you. Could you, Jamal, share with us a few common examples of negligence that could potentially lead to a personal injury claims? And I know you mentioned a few, but can you give a couple additional examples?
A truck driver who's driving an 18-wheeler big rig makes a left turn when they see someone coming and that person has to slow down in order to avoid them. There is actual laws, federal regulations that say they cannot do that. And then a collision occurs. Somebody driving behind someone else. That person stops for whatever reason, and the person behind them crashes into them. That person is negligent. Uh, if you have an apartment complex and it is a high crime area, and people have regularly had their houses broken into, if you don't maintain your gate for whatever reason and don't fix it, or you don't have security out there, um, that's negligent. These are, some of the more prime examples.
Great, thank you so much. How can individuals protect themselves from being held liable for negligence and personal injury lawsuits?
So that's simple. You just be prudent, be safe. Um, Once again, negligence is just a fancy word for an accident. Accidents happen when people aren't paying attention and they do something that they're not supposed to be doing. So if you want to protect yourself from running in the back of someone, you should ride with space in between you and that person. You shouldn't drive, you shouldn't run up on someone too fast. If you want to protect yourself from negligence when you're stopped at a light about to make a left turn, you should make sure everybody drives past. Make sure that is clear before you go out there. If you want to protect yourself from negligence as a business owner, you need to make sure that you have, folks, your employees going up and down your aisles, making sure things aren't on the floor that people can slip on. If something is on the floor that somebody can slip on, that you're putting wet floor signs down or whatever have you, or you have somebody out there to come pick up whatever the issue is. You do what you're supposed to do. As that's really what it comes down to. It's really that simple. If I'm involved, that means somebody has been harmed. That's a problem. People shouldn't be getting hurt through no fault of their own.
And I really like that comparison. When the way you explained negligence being an accident, that makes a lot of sense. Is there a set of legal standards that are commonly used to determine negligence in personal injury cases at your law firm and overall?
Uh, uh, I'm not entirely sure what you're asking about, legal standards. I mean, there's, obviously you have the burden of proof if you're plaintiff.
Mhm.
So you have to be able to prove your case. So you have to be able to prove first and foremost negligence. Then you have to prove that that negligence caused whatever injuries that you are claiming that you sustained. Um, I mean, that's a certain standard. At our firm, we have a certain threshold. It's not super, super high. But there is a an idea of, is it worth going through all the rigmarole that comes through with a personal injury case to pursue it, or could that be better served for someone else to handle? And then everybody has their expertise. With the law, if you have a criminal case, you need to speak to a criminal lawyer. If you have a child support case, you need to speak to a family lawyer. And so if you have a personal injury case, you need to speak to a personal injury lawyer. And so you want to deal with folks that have uh, a high standard of themselves. And so we at Litner Deganian, we have 8 attorneys now, including myself.
Oh,
We
wow.
pride ourselves. Yes, we pride ourselves at, holding ourselves to a high standard, communicating with our clients, making sure that they get the proper treatment, getting them, the best care they can have, and then doing the work, to get them the settlement that they deserve. Uh, and sometimes that really takes some real work, and you got to be willing to do that, because every attorney isn't.
Hmm. And based on your experience, Jamal, how do insurance companies assess liability in personal injury cases involving negligence?
First and foremost, so I handle mostly car wrecks, so I'll give a car wreck example. But first and foremost, folks are going to typically look at the police report. So it's very, very important that if you are involved in a car wreck, to call the police. Because police are experts. They go out. Sometimes they take pictures. A lot of times their body cams are on. But at the very least, they're going to write up a report that tells us what happened. Now, that's not always true. It's not always accurate, but the vast, vast, vast majority of the time, it will be. And so, and I always tell clients, obviously, I can't help them in this aspect if it's already happened. But I tell folks, just if I'm riding an Uber, I tell people, if you're involved in a wreck or something like that, what you want to do is you want to take pictures of the scene. You want to take pictures of both vehicles. If you have any bumps or bruises, you want to take pictures of those because those clear up quickly. You want to take pictures of any skid marks. There is so much you can do. So much evidence out there, but it will disappear quick. Like skid marks don't stay on the road. Bumps and bruises heal. People take their cars to get fixed.
Hmm.
Businesses, they don't hold camera footages, but so long. You may be in an area where there's a lot of businesses. There might be camera footage available. Sometimes that's very difficult to get if you're not a police officer. But there's ways to go about doing it.
Hmm. Good ideas here. What are the potential consequences of being found negligent in a personal injury case?
Well, your insurance rates are certainly going to go up. Yeah, you may have difficulty getting insurance if but that is why you have insurance. Insurance is billions and billions and billions of dollars. They know wrecks happen. If they didn't, I wouldn't be in business. You wouldn't be in business. We would not be here. So it, they have actually set aside money. This is something insurance companies do. They set aside money because they know something's going to happen. So, you know, it is important to be vigilant. It depends upon a lot of times how negligent were you. There is a difference between there's a little rain outside. The speed limit is 55. You were going 55, and you took your eyes off the road for a second to change your radio station, and you saw the person in front of you had stopped, you slam on brakes, and you tap them, and they have some minor injuries, and they get a little bit better, and your insurance company pays them out a nominal amount. And if you are a CDL driver, driving a truck that may total 80,000 pounds, and you've had a few drinks at the bar, and you're riding behind somebody on the interstate going 75 miles an hour, and you crash into the back of them and kill someone. Those are massive, massive differences.
Hmm.
So you know, while both of those insurance rates may go up, one is significantly more serious.
Hmm.
And so, if you're involved in you have to you're gonna have to cooperate with your insurance company. If somebody files a claim, somebody you may not even file a claim, but if somebody files a claim, if the police come to the scene, you may be cited. So you might have to pay a citation. and points may be on your license. Uh, and then obviously, if for whatever reason an agreement is not made, and a settlement is not came to, you may be sued. So, and if your insurance company did not do the right thing, that may have some financial consequences for you. But that is why you buy insurance. And so that's why you get those protections. So very, very important. If you're out driving, do not drive without insurance. So that those protections are there for a reason. It's actually required in Georgia.
Hmm.
You have to have liability insurance and get enough insurance while you're at it.
Hmm.
Uh, I know that's a different conversation for another day, but that's the point.
Hmm. Uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage is in Georgia, I believe, is 25,000. Is that correct? The minimum?
The minimum is you have to have however much uninsured motorist coverage you have to have at least that much
Hmm.
in at fault coverage. So you can't have $25,000 minimum at fault coverage and have $100,000 in UM. That's not how it works. You have to get at least $100,000 in UM coverage. I mean in at fault coverage to be able to have $100,000 in UM coverage. So on and so forth. That's just an example.
Hmm.
So
How, how can the burden of proof impact the outcome of a personal injury case involving negligence?
so it depends on how clear the negligence is. Uh a rear end with rear end damage to one vehicle and front side damage to another vehicle, where the police came out, gave the person that hit the person from behind a ticket. That person goes and pays the ticket. Uh, that's pretty easy. Negligence is pretty clear there. But if y'all are both out driving, um, and say there's a side swipe, and there's not, any type of way of knowing which vehicle was moving to the side, or that may be a little bit more difficult. And if there's no police report that comes out, or if a police officer cannot determine liability, a lot of times you can determine, who ran into the other person, but sometimes it's not quite as clear. Sometimes there's mutual liability. That then you may have a comparative negligence issue that comes up where you may have both done something wrong. For example, somebody may have hit you from behind, but you may have brake checked them. Brake checking is illegal. Don't do that. You know what I mean? So so that's just an example.
It's interesting talking about the brakes. Somebody just admitted, somebody was telling me a couple of days ago about this accident where the lady at fault who hit the plaintiff admitted actually she got out of the car and she said, I knew my brakes were wrong. Something was wrong with them, but I just kept on postponing going to see a specialist, a mechanic. And so I know it's my fault. It's like, here we go.
Yeah, that's negligent. You can't
Hmm.
do that. You knew that your brakes weren't doing well,
Hmm.
and then you chose to go on the road and drive anyway. That's you can't do that.
Hmm. So, what steps can injured individual take to strengthen their case when pursuing a personal injury claim based on negligence?
So it starts right from the beginning. Um, if you're injured for whatever reason, dog bite, slip and fall, uh, motor vehicle collision, negligent security, you get whatever situation it is. The thing you need to do first and foremost is make sure that you're okay. So you need to check up on yourself. Make sure you can function, seriously. After that, you probably want to call the police. Uh, and so you want to get some type of incident report done, uh, because there's going to be, once again, police are experts. They'll be able to come out there, look at the scene, look at the injuries, look at the damage. They'll be able to put something together so that there's a lot of evidence there. Then you want to go around, um, take photos, take videos, whatever it is that you may see, damage to any of the vehicles, um, what the area looks like, because there may be something that obstructed someone's view. You want to get all of that evidence. And then, you know, you call me and I'll make sure you're taken care of. I tell people that I know, you can call me from the scene, because a lot of times when you're involved in a wreck, your adrenaline is pumping, you're hurt. You're not thinking straight. Those, you can be affected mentally in a lot of ways, and a lot of those things don't come to your mind.
Mhm.
Um, and so someone like me, uh, who has been doing this for some time now, can give you some advice on what things you can do to better be able to prove your case, if you choose to pursue one.
Mhm. I appreciate that. And now from this same question from the other angle, or on the other hand, what these injured people should not do or avoid doing to strengthen their case when pursuing a personal injury claim based on negligence.
So you should not call the police. A lot of people try to handle things on their own, and then you have caused a severe lack of evidence. You should not wait to go get checked out. If you are having any aches and pains, you need to go immediately get checked out. And that is for a multitude of reasons. Number one, if you don't get checked out, it gets worse. Like you're not going to get better not doing what you need to do to get yourself better. Number two, if you don't get checked out, it looks like you weren't that hurt. At least that's the argument that the insurance company tries to make, even though nobody wants to go to the hospital. It doesn't, like I can understand from a human perspective, like why somebody wouldn't want to go to the hospital, wait 12 hours. Sometimes getting an ambulance is a very expensive bill. Why you wouldn't want to incur that. I can understand that, but those things are going to significantly hinder our ability to get you full compensation. Those things do hurt your case. If you are suffering from injuries, you do want to get checked out. One of the biggest things, and this is obvious, but I'll say it anyway. One of the biggest things that hurts your case is that you don't get a personal injury attorney. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is we are experts. I paid a lot of money to go to law school and learn the law. And then even when I got out of law school, there was a lot of things I still did not know. And so you're constantly learning. The laws constantly change. And you're constantly having to better yourself. And if you're not an attorney, you're not going to know these things. So you need someone to guide you through this process. Like if I have aches and pains, I go to the doctor. I don't diagnose myself. If there's something wrong with my toilet, I call a plumber. If I have an issue with, some wires, I call an electrician. I don't try to do these things myself because I know that that's not what I do. But for some reason, and I have no idea what it is, folks think that they, can do our jobs. And in fact, I had a buddy of mine one time. I was joking with him. He's a trainer. I try to stay protected myself. He's a trainer, and he was, telling me one time about, some injuries that he had and some things his doctor had suggested. And he was like, "Well, I don't want to do them." I was like, "Well, are you?" I was like, I didn't say to him, "Are you a doctor?" I said, "Hey, man, when you're training your clients and you tell them, do this exercise this way," and they say, "Well, I don't want to do it this way." Well, like, how do you feel?
Mhm.
And he got the idea. Even when I go to my doctor, like she'll make suggestions. It was funny because she'll make suggestions and then she asked me what I want to do, and I was like, "Well, what do I want to do? The things you suggested. You're the doctor." Um, and
I love
so,
it.
but and she was like, "You will be surprised how many people don't." And so that is one thing that I see so much, and you are absolutely killing your case.
Mhm.
Get you an attorney that knows what they're doing. You don't want to go to no discount attorney or no sucky attorney either. I mean, everybody doesn't do what we do. We handle cases from start to finish, up and until trial. And we will try a case if we need to, because that is the way that you get maximum compensation for folks. You got to be willing to go through the process.
Mhm.
And so you want an attorney that is willing to do those things. Um, so if you don't get one, it's going to significantly hurt your case. I know I talked about that for a while, but it is a big deal and it is very prevalent. It is amazing how often I get calls from folks. Wreck happened a month ago. They done messed the case up. Um, I do what I can for them, but the case would have been so much stronger if they would have had proper counsel from the beginning. And quite frankly, they would be feeling a lot better.
That's
So
the
because it
bottom.
would be
That's the
taken
bottom
care of.
line.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I really appreciate you, getting into detail into this because it is very important to emphasize and make everybody understand. And now the question totally off topic. Since you mentioned gym, tell me a little bit about your workout routine and what do you do and why you do it.
So Working out for me is actually very good for my mental health. It's very good to get my mind away from the law, get my mind away from work. I'm a very active person. Uh, I like sports. I like to stay active. It's good for your health just generally. So it's not just your mental health, it's good for your physical health. So I mean that's why I do it. I try to do some type of movement every day. Um, there is some, but rest is important. But I do try to do some type of movement every day. I try to get in the gym about 4 times a week, and then I try to do some type of cardio for whatever that may be, whether it's running, basketball, uh, working out on the heavy bag, whatever it may be. I try to do that on the other days.
Hmm. And what's I know you do some heavy lifting. What's the maximum amount you ever lifted?
Well, it depends on what lift you're talking
Like the heavy lifting. What
about.
is it called on the bar lifting?
So I mean, most people care about the bench press. So I bench press like 500 pounds, which is a pretty good number.
That's
Um,
that's
so
insane.
yeah,
Wow.
so I mean, that's my bench press.
Yes, we definitely we'll add your Instagram and all your other links where people can actually see for themselves. Because today I went to this alpha class at Lifetime Fitness, and one of my friends, he lifted, I want to say 275, and it was hurting just looking at it. So the way that you, Jamal, do, I can't even imagine, but I admire it. Never stop, please. All right, so
Thank you.
back to our conversation. Could you define a comparative negligent to us? And we have about 7 minutes left, so we can just kind of, I guess, summarize those answers and just move on to the next one.
Sure. So since we mentioned it, one is if you slam on brakes for no reason and somebody hits you from behind, well, you're both at fault in that situation. One that you may see a little bit more often is when someone is taking a left turn and the other person is speeding, towards them, and the person that takes the left turn, uh, you know, there's a wreck that occurs, but the other person was speeding. So say, uh, you're on a regular road, speed limit is 55. One individual is at a they have a green light, but you still have to yield. For the folks that don't know, you have to yield to take a left. And so they're in a turn lane. They got their signal on. They're waiting to take a left turn. And then they see someone coming, but that person is far away. And so they make the left turn, but that person was going, say, 75 in the 55. And a collision occurs. In that situation, they are both at fault. If you ask me to tell you who's more at fault, it'll be person taking the left turn. You saw somebody coming. I don't care if they're speeding or not. You shouldn't have took a left turn in front of them. That doesn't make sense. You saw them coming. Don't take a left turn in front of them. However, if you're driving 20 miles over the speed limit, flying through the lanes, that's also some negligence there.
Mm-hmm. How does comparative negligence affect the outcome of personal injury cases?
So the way it works, and this is very, very important, is that uh, if we take it, say if you're in front of a jury, so it's all the way at trial for whatever reason, if there is a verdict, say, of $100,000, I'm using easy math, um, and the plaintiff is considered to be 25% at fault, so they're comparatively negligent, then their recovery will be $75,000. Um, it is important that a trial attorney for the plaintiff explain to the jury that they are not to do that math themselves. They are to give the full amount of the damage, and then they can say whatever percentage that they feel that the plaintiff is negligent, and then that percentage will be taken away. What they should not do is do the math themselves, do it down to 75,000, saying like, "Oh, I did it," and then now you have to. Then now you're taking 75% of 75,000 because you still said they were comparatively negligent. So
Mm-hmm.
that is one way of looking at it. Of important note, Georgia is a modified comparative negligence state. So if you have the same amount of negligence as the person that you are asserting, so the defendant was negligent. So if it's 50-50, then you are not able to recover. Um, so it is modified comparative negligence. So as long as you're less negligent than the other person, you will be able to recover.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What role does expert testimony play in providing negligence and liability in personal injury cases?
So you have different experts for different things. So you may I use the police as an example, so I'll use them again. The police may be a good expert for purposes of negligence, saying who is at fault, right? When you start talking about causation and damages, then you're going to start getting into your medical experts. Um, and then you have biomechanical experts, billing experts. There's so many different experts. But just to keep it simple, we can talk about, your doctors, for purposes of expert testimony for damages, and causation. Very, very often, most of us that have tried a few cases have dealt with, um, very often you're going to have a defense attorney will hire an expert to say, uh, yeah, because they consider themselves to be at fault, so they agree that they were negligent, but they may hire an expert to say, yeah, we were, that they don't talk about negligence, but they'll in their position will be, um, the wreck itself that hurt your client, that your client is claiming hurt them, you know, did not cause these injuries that you are asserting. And then so you may have competing experts because obviously if you sent your client to, treating physicians for whatever reason, whether that may be a chiropractor, an orthopedic, anesthesiologist, whoever it may be, um, those folks need to be able to establish causation for the injuries. Um, and so that is very important. There are a lot of good doctors out there that are not able to do that. They're good at helping people get better, which is very, very important. But when you have a personal injury case, you also need to be able to say, uh, these injuries were caused because of this. And you do that by taking a history, examining the client, doing all these things. So, and then the damages part, that's for the jury
Mhm. Mhm. That's
or
that.
the trier
that
of fact.
And so I think we're coming to conclusion of our episode, Jamal. That was again so great. I hope this episode about the impact of negligence and liability in personal injury cases was informative and educational for all. As promised, here's a fun pop-up question for you, Jamal. You ready?
Okay, I hope I am.
What's the most surprising or unexpected thing you've learned in working with PI, personal injury law?
Um, to me, it's surprising how many people don't litigate. I did not know that. So I am from a very small area. Uh, and when I was going to law school, I did not know how many folks did not try cases, had no desire to try cases, had no desire to litigate at all. Because, you know, even if you don't try cases, litigating itself is important. Somebody else will come try the case for you if you properly worked it up. Um, but uh more people don't litigate than do. So we'll say it that way. So that was the most surprising thing to me.
That's amazing. Wow, didn't know that either, or didn't know much about it. Let's put
Yeah.
this away.
It's actually a significant difference. So I
Wow.
didn't even know that until I was actually an attorney myself.
Very interesting. Again, that was attorney Jamal Bethune with Litner Deganian based in Atlanta, Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for listening and watching our story today. For more tips and tricks on legal funding and personal injury law related topics, follow me, download, like, and subscribe for It's Time for More Injury Funding podcast on several podcast platforms, including but not limited to Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and all others worldwide. And follow More Injury Funding on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, a YouTube, Google business profile, and my website at moreinjuryfunding.com. I can't wait to see you, my dear listeners and viewers, again soon at my next upcoming episode. Until then, be well. Thank you.
Thank you.